Okay, good morning, everybody. This is a common question that I get when I do consultations and just general online. One of the questions a lot of people ask when they go on a carnivore diet is, how much should I eat? How many calories should I consume? And so let's just sort of run this scenario. Okay, let's just say that we're going to calculate how many calories you need. And so we would put in things like, your height, your weight, your age, your sex, perhaps body composition, maybe some underlying health conditions. We could come up with something called the basal metabolic rate. This is something we could look at and activity level. We could say, well, based on your, these factors, we will assume that you need to eat 2,200 calories a day for, basic energy needs, right? And then we calculate, what you might burn and consume. And then we try to figure out how much food we give you, and then some people may say, well, we need to figure out the macronutrient ratios and then try to make sure it's a balanced diet. So therefore, we need to plug in the RDA numbers to get the correct amount of nutrients that you might need, how much vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, manganese, potassium, calcium, so on and so forth. This is what a dietitian or a nutritionist might do. And, some of the problems with that is it's very difficult to accurately exactly measure the food, what you're getting. So, you might have a generalized scenario, what's basically in a piece of steak or, this or that food, but the problem is they're not 100% accurate. So you're always going to be estimating at best. And then how much food you actually ingest versus how much actually gets absorbed tends to be also another factor that we can't really control for. Certain foods combined with other foods are going to interfere with the absorption of the food. We also have to realize that day-to-day variations in how much we expend are also going to play a role here. So you may be, one day doing more activity. One day you may sleep less. One day you may have something going on health-wise, a cold or something like that. Perhaps the temperature changes. All these things are going to impact caloric output. And so the best you can say is it's only going to be an estimate. And so if we look at animals in the wild, when I try to explain that to Maximus, and I tell Maximus, Maximus, you're 3 years old and you're about 18 pounds, and I don't really know how tall you are. But when I explain that to him, he kind of looks at me like this. He doesn't really get it. He doesn't get it. And why is it that every animal in the wild, doesn't need to do that? They don't need a calculator. They don't need an app. They don't need a nutritionist telling them what to eat. Some people say, well, predator animals like a lion will, maintain its body weight because it can only catch so much prey, and they're spending too much time in activity. And, a lot of times they're unsuccessful in the hunt, so they're chronically sort of maybe under eating perhaps. And that there may be some truth to that. But let's look at, there's animals that don't have to hunt. There's animals that are herbivores. For you guys that are vegans that like being herbivores, these guys graze continuously. They really have, in many cases, not always, but in many cases, they have unlimited food supply. And they don't suffer from, I would say, obesity-related illness. They don't seem to suffer from chronic disease, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, things like that. When we start feeding our own animals and we feed them a diet that is probably not appropriate, then we see those things. And so if you go to the zoo, one of the common things you'll see or used to see was, don't feed the animals human food, right? Because it makes them sick. And the question becomes, maybe human food isn't really human food. Maybe we shouldn't be eating that stuff. And so why is it that pretty much every animal in the world, except humans or the pets that we feed, has problems with all of these issues? And so I think when it comes down to calories, all right, Maximus, go down. When it comes to calories, it's very difficult to know for sure. And so if we think about, wild human beings, and this is where a lot of the problem with sort of our modern perception of what is ideal. A modern human being in a wild is not a fitness model. They're not walking around at 5% body fat with ripped abs year round. And I know some people think that is a goal. And, certainly for those people, that's fine. There's different ways to do that. But for a wild type human, subsisting on a human diet, at a normal level of body composition, there should be a food you can just eat and not have to think about it. And I honestly think that food is largely meat. I think humans, evolved as heavy meat eaters. Maybe not 100% carnivorous at all times, but certainly hypercarnivore, which would be defined as 70% carnivorous, and we know from radioisotopic data that humans ate a lot of meat. It was very much probably a large part of their diet. Now, when we look at modern indigenous tribes, we see somewhere between 30 and 80% of their calories coming from meat. The problem with looking at modern indigenous tribes is they are not in the situation that humans evolved in. Remember, humans evolved in a time when there was an abundance of megafaunal animals. We had basically an all-you-can-eat meat buffet. We were very good at killing those animals. Homo erectus proved that 1.5 to 2 million years ago. They were extremely proficient hunters of elephants, mammoths, and whatnot. So we had really probably unlimited meat supply. So when we eat those things, what tends to happen is we settle into a relatively normal human body composition. So for me, for instance, I usually sit there, somewhere 12, 14% body fat. That's kind of where I'm at. Just eating as much as I want. I don't care about it. I don't think about it. I eat when I'm hungry. I eat till I'm full. I eat as often as I need to, and that's what I do. Now, if I want to get leaner, if I want to get 10% body fat or less, then I need to do some other things that aren't really normal human physiologic needs. And so when most people go on a carnivore diet, they ask me, how much do you eat? I say, well, ballpark, on average, a guy's going to eat about 2 pounds, a girl's going to eat about 1.5 pounds. That seems to bear out. There are certainly exceptions to that, and there are times when that's going to be more, there's going to be times when that's less. And so what happens is if we allow our body to adapt to the diet, and again, the problem is we have so many people. What I would postulate is if you were a human being and you were normal and you were healthy and you ate nothing but meat, you would probably never have issues with obesity. You would just, you would naturally stay like, if you started eating a carnivore diet when you were 10 years old, I don't think you'd ever have trouble with obesity for your entire life. Now, the problem is we have so many people that are, chronically sick, morbidly obese. Their appetite perception has been screwed up. Sometimes, and I've done this, you eat and you eat and you eat and you just eat until you get so friggin' full. I mean, I've eaten until I've thrown up. I'll admit that a couple times. Just ate so much. One of them was like a all-you-can-eat pizza challenge, and one was when I was in the Air Force, and we were chronically sort of starving. We just went to the grocery store and ate as much food as possible until we just gorged like a snake that just eating a deer or something like that. But so people have this sort of perception of how full they need to be to get satiety when you probably don't need to do that. And particularly with the food we eat now, and this is one of the things that vegans like to do, they eat these massive bulky food to stretch out their guts and stimulate those mechanoreceptors, and they get that their feedback for satiety. But really, many people will find if they eat till they're pleasantly satisfied, give it some time, then most people will find that they eat to a appropriate amount of calories. I think at some point when you get in a position where you're eating basically human food, and I would say meat is human food, and that's the majority of your calories, your body will say, hey, look, when I'm hungry, I need to eat. And it's as simple as that. It's simple as any other animal out there. Give that a time, give that 6 months, give that a year. And most people will find that becomes extremely freeing. It becomes extremely, you don't have to think about it. That's great. And one of these things that we see so much pushback against this sort of intuitive eating or carnivore style lifestyle from the people that really want to complicate nutrition for you. They want you to balance this exactly and do this and that and mix these food together and maybe take the supplements they might be selling. This really makes things very complicated. Remember, I think really of all the eating strategies out there, the number one strategy, the most successful strategy is just eat human appropriate food. I would argue, and I think as we're seeing in this community, that meat largely is human appropriate food. Now, are there some other things that humans would have eaten? Surely there are. But I think if we get the majority of our calories from meat, we're going to be doing well. And I think many people do a little bit better with enough fat. I'm not going to say eat nothing but fat or tons of fat. And there's some people that would argue that you need to eat a 2-to-1 ratio or something like that. I've seen people be successful in all different strategies on that. So I think it's something you've got to find yourself, fine-tune a little bit. I think you need enough fat. Remember, fats are essential. We have to have essential fatty acids. That is clear. Same with amino acids, vitamins, and minerals. These are their essential requirements. Meat provides basically all that stuff. And so, find your own sort of rhythm. I can't tell you exactly what to do. I can encourage people And when I do consultations, a lot of it is just sort of putting people in the right frame of mind, encouraging them, giving them feedback, talking about things they may or may not need to worry about. You've got to put in perspective what your actual goals are, and or what they should be. A lot of people have this: I want to fit into these jeans or have a six pack, and those things become different. And then I think when you start to sort of get into the world of fitness models and bodybuilding and stuff like that, then your eating strategy will change a little bit. But it's not human physiology. It's not normal human, physiology. If you want to just be healthy, lean, and feel good and not have to worry about your food, the strategy I talk about works pretty well. If you want to stress and be anxious about it and be at a super low level of body fat for whatever reason, then you're going to have to do these things like counting calories and macro partitioning and fat cycling and being hungry and in many cases and it may or may not, and I would argue that even going from 15, 14, 12, 13% body fat down to 7% body fat probably confers little, if any, long-term health benefit, and so it's one of those things where you just have to sort of say, well, where are you comfortable at? What do you want to do? What are your goals going to be? So anyway, so how many calories to eat? I really don't know. I wish I could tell you. It's going to vary day to day, but what's more important is counting how many days you enjoy, counting how many meals you enjoy, and that's ultimately, I think, what's going to make us happiest. All right, guys, hope this is helpful. Check out the links found below. What else? I'll just try to keep them coming, guys. Let me know what your questions are. Take care. Thanks.